The fifth quarter with Chad Doing starts now. Call Chad right now at 503-248-0620. The fifth quarter is presented by Coors Light, keeping Portland chill.
As really we celebrate the life, and what a life well lived it was, of Bill Schonely, who passed away yesterday, as you all know. And, you know, I can still remember the first time that I heard his voice on the radio as a youngster. You know, we moved out here from Colorado in 1987. And right after I moved here, I ended up going on a little skiing trip up to Mount Hood. You know, fresh over from Colorado, I still had a lot of skiing desire in my blood. And so I went up with a friend. His name was Jason. And so we went up skiing. And then on the way back home, as we're coming down the mountain, Jason's dad had flipped the radio to KX. And that was my first exposure to Bill Schonely. And it didn't take me long to figure out, little Chad, that love that guy, love his voice, and I want to do what he does. I want to sit behind a microphone and talk. It just blew me away how good he sounded, how well he described the action, and then over the course of time, you know, to see how much he loved his job, how much he loved the area, the Northwest, the city of Portland, and the grace in which he interacted with fans. It was truly impressive. And the great part about this job was as I had an opportunity to get behind a microphone, obviously had a chance to meet Sean's and speak with him on multiple occasions and interview him. And even up until the very end, he loved the Portland Trailblazers, loved Rip City, loved the fans. And, just I think if he had the ability and the energy to go back and be the voice again, he would have done it. And that's how much he loved it. So, really a celebration. Lived into his 90s, lived a life that only most of us could dream of, was beloved in this town. And I'll never forget the first time I saw this Cadillac, and it was in downtown. And I was walking around trying to get some things done, and I see this Cadillac, and the license plates read Rip City. And I'm like, number one, it's a Cadillac. Number two, it's got Rip City license plates. How badass is that? And guess whose car it was? That's right, Bill Schonely. Of course he's got Rip City license plate. He should, and that's freaking awesome. It's the coolest license plates I've ever seen in my life, and he had Rip City on him. So tonight, as you know, the Blazers, with a disaster of a basketball game, they gave up 75 points in the second half, and there was a lot of fireworks in the postgame pressers with both Coach and with Dame. A 121-112 loss to the Lakers. We'll get into that. Obviously, you have some thoughts on that. But tonight, we can take this whatever direction you want. You can call in and share thoughts about the Shans, maybe share some stories if you've had a chance to cross paths with him. I would love to hear what you have to say about him and any stories you may have, 503-248-0620. And we can also talk about the game tonight. I'm not really too upset about the result. It's frustrating to watch that type of game take place where the Blazers once again come out slow. They're down 18-4. Then all of a sudden they go on a hot streak and take a 25-point lead into halftime, and it looks like they're going to win by 40. And then the Lakers come out and outscore Portland 40-20 in the third quarter and then hammer them in the fourth quarter and get the win. It was a collapse on many levels by the Trailblazers, but I think the reality is right now, with the way this thing is going, they're a below-average basketball team, and they've got a head coach right now who's struggling, and he has now for over a month, and tonight, honestly, he sounded kind of lost. So that's kind of my takeaway on the game. LeBron, as much as it pains me to say this, he's a unicorn. 37 points, 11 rebounds tonight. And he took advantage of the Blazers, one of their biggest issues, lack of size, and he put the ball down, put his shoulder down, and straight line drove it to the hoop all night long. Because they have no one that can stop him. What can you do? So that's where we're at. But really just want to celebrate the life of Sean. Great broadcaster, great man, loved this town, was embraced by the city, and in my mind, for obvious reasons, the most popular Trailblazer of all time and always will be, because he had a chance to bring up more than just one generation in Rip City. And back in the day, the way you followed the team was through the radio, and it was his voice, and you followed the games through him. And when I would go over to my friend Chris's house, because my dad wouldn't pay for Blazer cable, his dad would turn down the TV and crank up the Shans. And that's pretty much how it went back then. 503-248-0620, of course. I've got my main man, Chris Burkhardt, here. You can jump on the YouTube stream, youtube.com, pull up the homepage, Rip City Radio, and you'll see the live link right there. What's up, Burkhardt?
Oh, just having a nice day. I know Blazer fans didn't like the way that game played out, but I'm a 49er fan, so it's been okay for me today.
Yeah, it was weird because, obviously sad to hear about the loss of Sean's, but he lived a great life into his 90s. And really, I felt like today was more of a celebration for his life. And then you have this game that played out the way it did, another ugly home loss for the Portland Trailblazers. So mixed emotions. The football action today was terrific. Great performance by the Bengals, showing toughness on the road in Buffalo with Joe Burrow. And the 49ers get another win with Brock Purdy, and it sets up a perfect Sunday. So next Sunday, Championship Sunday, is going to be superb. 49ers-Eagles into the Bengals and Chiefs, a rematch from last year's AFC Championship game. So so we're treated with the right football. But weird today because we're trying to celebrate the life of Sean's, and then the Blazers have one of the more infuriating losses of the season. It's like, come on, man. Not like this.
Yeah, exactly. It started slow, and then the way they came back, it was like, yes, you're writing the story that we want, and then it fell apart late.
What do you recall from your interactions with Sean?
He's just a legend, man. Like there was an aura about him.
No
like,
question.
I don't know if I've ever seen a 90-year-old walk around with a bigger puffed chest, and I mean that in a good way. Like he knew that he was the Sean's. He was the mayor. He was beloved by all. And I told you on the phone, like one of my favorite stories ever of his, man, was sitting in line, media dining, right? He's right in front of me. And someone is joking with him and is like, oh, Bill, you're not allowed to eat in here. This is just for working media. And he looks around and looks back and he goes, I'm Bill Schonely. I can do whatever the heck I want. He just grabs a slop of food and puts it on his plate, and everyone just cracks up laughing because he just said it with such confidence. But I know myself being a guy kind of like you talked about, you listened to the radio and you knew you wanted to do that. Like guys, for me, it was guys like Stu Scott. Like I wanted to be just like Stuart Scott and Neil Everett. And I got to meet him one day and was just in awe. And the Sean's was the same, being a local kid. And every single time I was in the same room as him, I was just like, dead air, speechless, right? Because it's just like, that guy, he's the man. He is the man.
Yeah, he was. And he was sensational, and he did the job the right way for many years. 503-248-0620. Lakers take out the Blazers tonight, 121 to 112. Let's go out to the phones. I want to hear your voice. Let's start out in Seattle. It's Dwight in Seattle. Dwight, welcome to the fifth quarter. You're up. Fire away.
Yeah, how are you doing tonight?
I'm well.
Good. Kevin Clobro fan, Supersonic fan here. And I just wondered, have you heard any rumors? What do you think about the Sonics coming back? Because now we got the Climate Pledge Arena.
Well, everything I've heard about the Sonics and Seattle is that it's just a matter of time until the NBA expands, and when they do, there are two cities they're looking at, Seattle and Las Vegas. So I fully expect you guys to get a team back.
Oh, cool. That'd be good. Yeah, 41 years,
So are you following Trailblazer basketball right now, or how do you?
Oh yeah, I enjoy your postgame show. It's really neat. Like you have the people call in and all that stuff.
Well, I appreciate that. So do you? I mean, how? Can I ask you a question? Because I'm not a Sonics fan, but how infuriated were you when the team moved to Oklahoma City?
Very bad. I went to the last game, and it was just. I don't go to Starbucks because of it.
I was just getting ready to ask you how many cups of Starbucks you've had since the team went to Oklahoma City.
I don't drink coffee anyway, but I wouldn't go there. And this guy in KJR, Softy, I don't know if you heard of him. He doesn't go there either.
No, Softy's a good friend. Yeah, I like Softy a lot. And I know he's frustrated by the whole thing. But I can tell you from the people I've spoken with, it's just a matter of time until you guys get an NBA team back.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Because we got the Storm and the Kraken right now, so.
No doubt.
It's busy up there.
Well, Dwight, I appreciate you listening to the fifth quarter from Seattle. And hang in there, man. You'll get your team back.
Yeah, say hi to Kevin for me.
I'll do it. There you go. Dwight in Seattle, big Calabro fan. Doesn't drink Starbucks, as you might imagine. Very irritated that the Sonics are now in Oklahoma City. I got to go out to the phones. This here, a good friend. His son shares the same birthday as I do. You see him on Coin. And just a heck of a good guy. Adam Bjarnson is back. What's up, Adam? Long time no chat.
August 28th. Let's just everyone shower Chad and my son Cade with gifts. August 28th.
That's right.
And nothing, man. Nothing. Well, I should say nothing. There's been way too much going on in the Rip City world, obviously, for the last few days. So,
yes.
But I was at the game tonight, Chad, and I just flipped you on, and I was like, you know what? It's just been we've all had stories. I mean, so many stories that we can tell about Sean's and John Curry. And I mean, the list goes on, but more those, of course, most recently. And it's just, I didn't cry yesterday. I was so prepared for this because I knew it was going to happen soon. And, I grew up on the Oregon coast. 1983, I remember shooting baskets on the driveway, and Audie Norris, Kenny Carr, Wayne Cooper, all the old names, and Clyde and Barry to follow. And I just wanted to be like those guys. And the guy who connected us all was the Shans. And it was like, God, he was our Rip City glue, if you will. You know, he kept all of us connected to that. And just to not have him around anymore, that like.
Oh, no. Not the phone. Hey,
Or so.
Hey, Adam, let me ask you a
go
question. You've been in this business longer than I have. What was it like for you when you got into the biz and then you had a chance to interact with the Shans on a professional level? What was that like for you, and do you remember that time?
I do. And one of the more out-of-body experiences I had was Bill, when I was doing Trailblazers.tv, I think this was in 2010, and had my own show and everything, and they said, every day you got to come to the table with someone new. They could be within the team directory itself, or you could find former Blazers, players, whoever, journalists in the area. And I remember asking Bill if he wanted to come on. He goes, oh, I'd be delighted. And so we started talking, and the first thing he wanted to talk about was his charity that he was doing at Providence for Bill's kids. And I said, well, why don't we try to raise money? How can we do that? And then I just started thinking, so many people were coming to me saying, let's get him to voice their voicemail messages. And his has been on mine since that day. And I think it was in 2011 when we did this. And I just reached out to the people I had on Twitter at that time, and I said, hey, do you want to come on and have Bill Schonely for a minimum fee or donation of $10? You can donate as much as you want. It's all going to go to charity. And Bill will voice your voicemail. So his has been on mine the whole time. My wife just brought it up to me a day before Bill passed and said, when that day comes, are you going to take that off your phone? And I put it to a vote last night. We were out to dinner last night with some friends, and I said, should we change this? And everyone said, no. God, no, you don't want to change that. That's awesome. So I'm keeping Bill Schonely. When you call my cell phone, it's Bill's voice, and he says, hello there, I'm Bill Schonely. I want to let you know Adam's not available, and he will be soon. So leave a message, and then he says, Rip City, baby. And I'm like, there's no way I can ever change that.
No,
and
he
it's
wouldn't want
just
you
from
to.
my Blazer. No, you're right.
You're
right.
He wouldn't want you to, because this is his voice will get a chance to live on even after now that he's passed, and I think he would appreciate that. And those are floating around. Take a listen to this one.
Hi, this is Bill Schonely. If you're trying to get a hold of Duke, one of the best UPS guys around, he's not available right now, but he'll get back to you just as soon as he possibly can. Rip City.
How badass is that, Adam?
That is the best. Oh, man. There's not a voice that resonates more with this state and never will be again. There's just not. And it's, I got to be honest with you, Chad. I wrote the obit package on Sean's in 2019. 4 years ago. And I just wanted to be prepared. When you're watching ESPN, Pele died, whatever it was, a month ago. And what do? As soon as he dies, Jeremy Schaff's got a retrospective on the life and times of Bill Schonely, or of Pele. And, they have that stuff in the can and prepared already. So I did this, and then probably 2 months ago, I wanted to update it. I talked to Kerry Eggers, and he had the book, of course, the second book came out. Yeah, it's just, you try to be a step ahead of everything, and it's still just never, I'm going to have those moments that are going to come up. All of us are, where we're going to see his face and just, a tear will run down our face, and it just sucks, man. We're all going to die someday, but, when one guy feels like he was that guy for so long and feels like he's just never going to pass, and what a life. If we all lived our lives like Bill Schonely, we would be in a much better place, without question.
There's no question. You know what always blew me away, too? Like, how great he was with the fan base, with people, and the way he would interact in public. He would run into people. They knew who he was. But he had a grace and an elegance with how he handled all that, which was amazing.
No question. I didn't get a chance last April to go to his going away thing. I think I was out of town for something was up. But I saw him the next day at Oswego Grill in Lake Oswego. I walked in. I was with a client. We walk around the table, and some guy yells us over and says, "You got to come over here." And Bill had his back to us. I didn't know, but apparently every Tuesday or Monday, I think it was the final game he was at was a Monday, and this was a Tuesday. So apparently he and a bunch of guys got together for lunch every Tuesday at Oswego Grill. And Bill was just as generous and as gracious with his time as he always has been. And you're right. I mean, nothing ever was in it for himself. He was all about helping others. And that's one of those great things that every one of us can take away is like, look, this guy just lived a life of giving and of gratitude, and he never let it slide. Never let it slide. And I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss walking into Mona and seeing him. And here I'm cracking for the first time. You know, it's like, it's such a loss for all of us. And he was so much more than one of those guys that was just a voice. You know, it was everything he did in life. So anyway, I just wanted to call and chime in. And about tonight's game, oh, dude, what the heck are we doing? I mean,
disaster.
I sat there. I can't get Thomas Bryant out of my head. I'm like, why aren't you boxing out? Honestly, it just drove me up a freaking wall. So anyway, dude, you're doing a killer job. I love listening to you when I can, and keep up the great work. And rest in peace, Bill, because we're all going to miss you. A part of all of us was taken the last 2 days. So,
dude, I'm so glad you called in, man. No, it's okay, man. You know I love you, and that was a terrific phone call. Adam Bjarnson with Coin calling in, and I haven't talked to Adam in a while, so it's great to catch up with him. And those are the stories I'm talking about. You can see the impact that the Schons had on him as he did me and many of you. What a special, special man Bill Schonely was. And then at the end, he was able to let out some frustration after the meltdown tonight. Thomas Bryant, by the way, I don't even know who he is. 12 of 15 from the floor, 31 points. Brutal. 4 or 5 from 3, too.
Now you know what it's like with other teams when the Blazers play them. They're like, I don't know who Drew Eubanks is, but he played a pretty solid game against us.
Yeah, Eubanks tonight was electric. Nurk, not so much.
Not so much.
Oh, by the way, I just saw these numbers. I'll just throw these out there for comic relief tonight. Let's see here. Last 3 games for Nurk. 69 minutes. Nice. 5 of 22 from the floor, 22%. 12 points, 14 fouls. Is that good?
Well, it's been tough. He had to go up against juggernauts like Jokic, Embiid, and Thomas Bryant. So,
all right, let's go out to Tim in Milwaukee. Tim, the stage is yours, my man. Take it away.
Chad, I was out doing deliveries tonight, working a little OT, and I think I did something like 11 deliveries was on my itinerary. And tonight I had the game on, of course, the Lakers, and I think I encountered 6 people at last count they heard the game coming out of the cab, and they said, "Hey, how's the game going?" We engaged in conversation. Schonely came up. Chad, 6 times out of those 11 deliveries, someone knew someone in production, someone knew a player, someone knew somebody in the front office, someone had season tickets for an extended period, somebody knew a dancer. This community of Portland Trailblazer fans in the city in and of itself is so tightly knit. It's very exciting when we get an opportunity to talk together and be bonded together by our experiences. I'm so blessed that I'm about to turn 48 here in just a few days, that my life overlapped that of Bill Schonely. When I was 4 years old, I had a Smurf battery-powered radio that I kept under my pillow so my parents wouldn't know that I was listening to the radio at night. And the first voice that I ever heard that really put an impression on me in terms of professional broadcasting was that of Larry King. The second was Bill Schonely. And Bill Schonely, also the first person of importance, for lack of a better word, celebrity, the very first I ever met. And I've told that story about meeting him in a urinal. And the second one was Lauren Bacall. So, yes, he's in good company there. I I want to say, I want to bring back the interview with Mr. Clyde Drexler from a couple of weeks ago, Chad, because I've been saying something that Mr. Drexler said on your broadcast. You've been gracious to have me on for a few years now. And Mr. Drexler said, back in the days of Mr. Paul Allen, he needed sports-minded people around him. And he couldn't make decisions himself. And there wasn't a good group of people around him to make sports-minded decisions, to make an impact on the community, and to bring us, consistent championship contention that draws the community together. And I just want to say that finally, I feel like I don't know what the word is, but I was absolved by Mr. Drexler when he finally said that, because I've been screaming that at the top of my lungs since I was a teenager. So to finish up, Chad, in honor of Mr. Schonely and Mr. Drexler, those that have passed, Mr. Duckworth, Mr. Kersey, and so on, and in honor of the community of Portland Trailblazer fans, I really hope, and you've been saying this especially for the past couple of months, I really hope that this organization can come together and start putting together a new generation of winning for the new generation of fans that's coming in, so that they can have their Bill Schonely and their Clyde Drexler and their Jerome Kersey, because right now we're languishing in a very stagnant, mediocre, uninteresting time in our franchise history. So rest in peace, Mr. Schonely. It was so awesome. And Chad, dude, I joke around with you a lot, but in conclusion, I think you do an amazing job. I think you're a great professional broadcaster, and you're one of the last ones, dude. Thank you for having me on your show when you do, and good night.
I appreciate it, man, Tim. Your calls are always good. You are unique, and you're always welcome on the show. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right? What Drexler said about Paul being a very good owner, being aggressive and loving basketball in the Blazers, but not doing a great job of surrounding himself, with good basketball-minded people. And the problem with the Blazers right now, the big issue is ownership. Jody and Bert are running the show right now, and that's not going to get the job done. So we just got to hope that TV deal gets done sooner rather than later, so they can sell the franchise, because that's what they're waiting for. Because once that new TV deal goes in, the franchise is going to increase in value significantly in the billions, and they'll move on, and then hopefully, Uncle Phil will take over, and this team can get real people in real positions to get the job done, to build a winner. Because as long as Jody and Burton are in control, that's not going to get the job done. All right, let's keep things rolling. If you're on hold, stay there. Your phone calls are coming up next. 503-248-0620. We can talk about the game, and you're free to do that, but if you want to talk Sean's and share stories about the Sean's or what he meant to you, I would love that as well, because we got to celebrate the life of the mayor of Rip City and the voice of your Portland Trailblazers, Bill Schonely, who has passed away. Chris Burkhart's here. Chad Doing, 503-248-0620. You got the fifth quarter.
Rexter on the inbound play. They got to get rid of it. Back out to Cliff Robinson. Cliff Robinson to Clyde. Checking the shot clock. Cliff goes underneath. Bounce pass to Ainge. Ainge for three. Rip! Yes, sir.
All right, your telephone number is 503-248-0620. Fifth quarter, Chad Doing and Chris Burkhart with you. We can talk about the game. Obviously, I would love your thoughts or any memories or stories you have in crossing paths with Bill Schonely, because that's what this show is all about right now, celebrating the life of the mayor of Rip City, Bill Schonely, who was a terrific man, incredible play-by-play voice, and he was a man that loved Rip City and loved the fans and loved every moment of the experience of being a part of the franchise. What a dude. What a great man he was. 503-248-0620. As far as the game goes, it was a disaster. Portland outscored 75-41 in the second half, and they fall to the Lakers 121-112. LeBron a game-high 37. Thomas Bryant 31 on 12 of 15 shooting. And that third quarter was, Lakers outscored them 40-20 in the third to get themselves back in a position to win the game. All right, let's go out to the phones. Then we'll go with Scott. Scott, appreciate the phone call. You're up on the fifth quarter. The stage is yours.
Yes, sir. Hey, appreciate you taking my call, Chad. This is Scott from Seattle, son of Dwight, and just heading back from the game. And just kind of curious, we're diehard Sonic fans, but we always kind of keep an eye on the Trailblazers. And just kind of wondering, after seeing the 25-point meltdown in the second half, is it time to blow things up as far as the team and looking ahead, or what do you guys think?
Well, it's a good question. I would say, there are people that think that now, in regards to where the team is at, and when you say blow it up, I assume you mean trading Dame. I never really discussed that as a possibility because I don't think the franchise is going to trade Dame. So I do think the losing streak will maybe cause a pause to where they won't get too aggressive at the trade deadline. And keep in mind, too, if they make the playoffs this year, they miss out on the draft, which is probably going to be pretty rich in talent. They won't have a lottery pick. So that's a problem. I mean, they've got a lot of things to consider. The one thing I'm certain of is Josh Hart's likely to get moved before the deadline because he's got a player option at the end of the year, and they're not going to be able to afford to give him a new contract and Jeremy Grant will be the number one priority. So you can't pay Hart and Grant. So I would say that Hart's going to get moved before the deadline, and as of right now, I would not expect any massive changes, big maneuvers. I realize when you look at the West, there are only a few games out of the fifth place in the Western Conference right now, but the reality is this team's not playing good ball. They're 4-12 in their last 16, and just, what are they now? 11-21. 11-21 since their 10-4 start. Let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Ramblin' Ben. Hey, Ramblin' Ben, what's up? You're on the fifth quarter.
Hey, Chad and Chris, how you guys doing?
We're doing well, man. Just absorbing the weird game tonight at Moda, but also celebrating the life of the great Bill Schonely.
It's been one heck of a weekend.
No question.
For everybody. And we also, I want to say a little bit about Sean's and a tiny bit about the game, but let's not forget about cameraman Curry.
Yeah, John Curry, who was a terrific man with the franchise for 40 years, who suddenly passed away a couple of days ago.
I have a short thing about him, and I'll start with that. I had season tickets, which I picked up a couple years after, maybe 10 or so years after I moved here in 77 from Chicago, which I've mentioned calling before, but bears repeating since it was a while ago since my first call. And I moved here from Chicago, and I moved in like March. And I wasn't a big basketball fan. I was a huge baseball person, grew up, even worked with the Cubs for a couple years in the concessions world. And so I saw through a friend of a friend of a friend whose dad had tickets, I got piggybacked into one of the LA games, and it just blew my socks off. And then, of course, I was hooked from that point, and everybody's listening to John's in the radio for that whole run to the championship. And from that moment forward, I was definitely 100% a basketball fan and a Blazer fan. And so fast forward a number of years, and I finally settled in doing some work and got some season tickets. And when we had our first couple kids, then grew up, they, of course, became Blazer fans. And my youngest boy especially was really into it. So I took him to some games. And when you're a Blazer season ticket holder, you can sign up for these little perks they do, you know, kind of like little mini contests for all the season ticket holders. And you get, you know, win this, win that. And one year we won, he got to be like on the court to receive a T-shirt before the game. And so we went down there, and he was like, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12, and he was nervous as heck. And so we go down there, and they take him away from me. They go through the underneath the stands and back to one of the far VOMs, you know, where the players come out. And so I was hanging around at the edge, and then I saw that you kind of see from a distance. It was great because you like to see the light behind him. And he's just kind of standing there, and he looked really nervous. And there was this guy who had a camera in his hand, and he kind of noticed my son, and I saw him come up and kind of put his hand on his shoulder, and he looked and says, and I don't know what he said, of course, he said, you know, something like it'll be okay, but he kind of calmed him down. And I found out later that was John Curry, and that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Of course, I never thought about it again until hearing about him die. I mean, I passed my mind, but just the specialness of that and hearing about what a great guy he was.
Yeah.
Small thing about Sean's, I don't want to keep talking. Is there something you wanted to say there?
No, go ahead. I'm just listening to you, my friend.
Okay. So, Sean's, I don't know, it was somewhere in the last 10 years or so, I went to a game with my son again and a friend and his daughter, and we were there. And we're hanging out before the game. We went early to eat at that little place. I think didn't they call it Sean's Place? It still is. There's on the concourse where you kind of have to stand in line. And you're waiting to get, quote, better food, unquote, for more money. And there's a line there and people coming up. And then so walking down the concourse is Sean's, and he starts working the line. You know, he's talking to people and shaking hands, and he gets to us, and he looks at the kids first. He says, hey, you're here. Is this your first Blazers game? And they were like, well, no. And they said, well, okay, well, you're Blazer fans, right? And they said, well, yeah. And so he said, well, could you keep that up? And remember, you always want to rip City. And they both went, Rip City. And it's like, and then he kind of looked at us and, you know, shook our hands and moved on. It was like, he was friendly with us, but it's like, it was all about him noticing the kids and interacting with them. And there weren't any other kids in the lines. It was mostly adults. So that just struck me as really special. And the kickback to when I was working for the Cubs in the concessions office, so we'd sell bobblehead dolls and stuff and fill the vendors' bins during the games. And the players would come into the concessions office when it was a day off, and they'd buy stuff for their families and stuff. And that's how I met, this is like 68, 69, and 70, those summers. Amazing years in Chicago. That's how I met Ron Santo and Randy Hundley and Ernie Banks. And I was like, I don't know, 16, 17. And, you know, they were like my heroes and stuff. But over the course of a couple of summers, I got to kind of know them. Well, Ernie Banks is a lot like Sean's. He's the kind of person that would talk to anybody, and he looks you in the eye. He makes you feel like you're important. He asks you personal questions. And I don't know about Sean's, but Ernie Banks would always, remember stuff. To remember who people were if he saw them. Anyway, so there's that quality of how important an individual figure who's a public figure is can have such an identity with a community that they become a long-term part of. And it's kind of like a feedback loop between that person and the community. And it's very special people like that. It's just Portland. One of the reasons why I love Portland is it has that quality that extends many different walks of life. And I just wanted to share those and say that I appreciate that like, I listen to different blogs and read the different people, and there's been a lot of really nice tributes from a lot of different media people. But every single one of them, it's all about that personal touch, and there's this receptiveness and a caring that extends through the community. And your fifth quarter is one place where that really comes to the fore, and how you accept different people. And I just love listening to the different folks. And I guess that's what I wanted to share for tonight.
Well, I appreciate that, Ben. So